and I feel lonely. I know the time can move so slowly, and in the distance I hear voices. Are they real or are they in my head? I'm lovesick. You got me lovesick, and I'm lovesick. You got me lovesick, and now I feel alive, feel alive, feel alive, feel alive, and now I feel alive. So many times they try to change me, and every time it drives me crazy. And all the good times we had saved me. Are they real or are they in my head? I'm lovesick. You got me lovesick, and I'm lovesick. You got me lovesick, and now I feel alive, feel alive, feel alive, feel alive, and now I feel alive.
Tonight we migrate to the south of from the south of the Iberian Peninsula to the outskirts of Florence and to the 5.2 kilometer long Mugello circuit for the second round of the Indy Euro Series Season 2. With its flowing and fast swooping corners and long straights, it makes for a brilliant sequel to last week's season opener. The track itself has never hosted an IndyCar race before, but it has seen its fair share of Formula racing in the past and present, being a mainstay for many different junior Formula series as well as GT series, but most notably hosting the 2020 Tuscan Grand Prix in Formula 1, where we of course saw that infamous Mugello restart, something that we dearly hope that we won't see a repeat of tonight. And just like last week, we are here on both the Indy Euro Series Twitch channel as well as on the Velocity Online Racing channel on YouTube. My name is Philip Ansell, and for the first time since the creation of IES, I'll actually be on solo comms tonight, due to the fact that Jaeden is off and celebrating his birthday. So we all wish him the very best and hope that he has a wonderful time. But I am joined, of course, by our talented producer, Julien Altena, who will be providing some awesome camera work throughout the stream. The track cams they will be seeing are by track cams provided by trackcams22.com, so check them out if you are interested to learn some more. But with all that said, of course, we look forward to qualifying and seeing whether or not our current provisional pole sitter, Franek Sikorsky, can keep up his winning form after taking a narrow victory ahead of Thomas Wright last week at Portimao. However, there are a couple drivers, of course, that will be gunning for a way better result than last time. Obviously, the likes of K. Boutsman, who's currently up in 4th position, who was borrowing a friend's rig last week out just to be able to compete. So that is some mad respect there. And the other driver that was going to give a bit of a shout out to was obviously, of course, our current 3rd place driver in qualifying, Wojciech Dvorak, who, of course, had a late race penalty last time out. And I'm sure that both of these drivers want to make a statement and an improved result of that this time out. There's also been a couple movers on the driver's side, on the driver market. 2 drivers have unfortunately withdrawn from the grid, being Marcus Chandler and Matteo Baccini. Of course, very sad to see, but hope that we see them at some point back on the IES grid. But we've also got 3 new drivers that have entered from last time. 2 of them being Micah Mixer and Indy Kirkenbauer in the newly formed Wowtiv Racing team. And then we also have Ben Ford, who is a very well-known driver in the Motorsport UK circle. So it'll be interesting to see how they'll start off their journey here in the Indy Euro Series at Mugello this evening. And speaking of what we have in front of us, obviously, what you're seeing right now is the last minutes of the 20-minute open qualifying session that we have here. A bit of a tricky session, I would have to say, because compared to Portimao last time out, Mugello is a more, it's got its blind crests, it's got its fast swooping corners, so there isn't a lot of space to let people go past, but that certainly has not done much to affect the competitiveness of the very front of this field. We see, basically all the way from Dvorak in 3rd place all the way down to Luke Smith in 8th. There is basically, less than a tenth and a half between them. But after this qualifying session, it will be followed by a 45-minute feature race that is based off the drivers' qualifying positions. And after that, we will have a bit of a break. We'll have an interview if we can get hold of the race winner from the feature race, but otherwise we'll go on a quick break, and then we'll be looking forward to a 25 minutes. There's a big contact for Jake Williams there, approaching a slower drive, and that will probably be a very, very big penalty for whoever that was in the end, because blocking is something that the stewards have been taking very strict measures with, and that is going to be another one for them to look at. So, even in qualifying, as I was saying, is that letting drivers go isn't the easiest of things to do. But as I just round out the format, it is a 25-minute sprint race where the top 16 finishers from the feature race will be inverted. So expect to see some very quick drivers trying to make their way up the field. With that said, let's go back to the qualifying, and we're riding on board with Franek Sikorski here, currently on provisional pole position. He was a driver that, before the start of the season, not many in the IES management team did not know of that much, but he's certainly, building upon that strong form we saw last time out in Portimao, currently holding provisional pole position by a little over a tenth of a second to our season 1 champion in Jake Williams, who has put the miseries of round 1 behind him. He did actually recover to 8th position in the end, so he had a very, very strong end to that race, obviously picking up a stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane when colliding with the driver that has just moved up into 5th position now, Luke Smith, 2/10 off pole position, but it's so very, very tight in that, in that pack behind Sikorski. It's basically, a tenth and a half from Williams in 2nd down to Langley in 9. So it just shows how competitive this grid is, and what, excitement we'll have in front of us later on in the race. I mean, a driver that was also impressing on debut being Aman Lal. He's currently in 10th position, 4/10 off the current pole sitter, with the last couple minutes now running down on the clock as we run on board with the Cuda Motorsport driver, Luke Smith, of course, that had collision with the man that we're now riding off board with, Jake Williams. So 2 drivers wanting to make a statement here tonight. It's obviously as well good to see that Ben Ford is on pace straight away. He's currently running in 8th position, right behind Thomas Wright. As we see Alexander Strobel now up into 10th position, a 1:29.1. So again, there is basically nothing separating some of these drivers in the midfield. And a little bird as well has told me in the ears that we have something that is going to be interesting to watch in both of the races. Because as you can see at the moment, sky is pretty clear, but in that distance, we can see those dark looming clouds coming towards us. And that is because there has been some rumors that there's going to be rain arriving for some point in both races. Whether or not it will come or not is up to us to see. Now looking at one of the new drivers on the grid, Indy Kirkenbauer, a driver that is well known in the oval IndyCar scene. And is great to see that we're getting, we're expanding the grid even to the American market as well. So it's a driver that may not be, too familiar with some of these lesser known road circuits, but he's doing a pretty good job at the moment, running in P23 at the moment. So as he, gets his footing in on these very, fast and twisty circuit, I think he's going to be just improving as the race goes on. But less than a minute now on the clock. It's now or never for Kirkenbauer if he wants to move up in the positions. So far as he crosses the line, I think that was actually a slower lap time from him, so he'll be going again. One more shot in qualifying for Kirkenbauer. I take that back, that was actually his quick lap. So wouldn't you love to see it when the commentators get it wrong? As we ride on board now with Ewan Langley, a driver that, in season 1 never really got it to click for him. In Portimao, though, we saw him come home in a very, very respectable P4 position. So he wants to build upon that. Obviously, Thomas Eng in the team's championship holding 2nd position. But there won't be any improvements for Langley. He will be finishing in 9th position. And that is the qualifying over. So it is a bit of a surprise pole position, I'll have to say. I mean, if you just looked at on paper anyway, before the championship begun, but with his pace that we saw obviously in Portimao, it is less of a surprise then, with Franek Sikorsky taking pole position just ahead of the reigning champion Jake Williams. So then let's go through the qualifying positions then. So of course Franek Sikorsky and Jake Williams will line up on the front row with Wojciech Dvorak and Kay Boutsman, 2 drivers that certainly made a bit of a redemption from last time out in 3rd and 4th. In 5th we find Luke Smith and Kostek Solovey, 2 drivers that are going to be, fighting and hunting down the drivers in front of them for sure. In 7th, we find Thomas Wright with Ben Ford alongside him. And on the 5th row, we find Ewan Langley and Aman Lal. On row 6, we find Alexander Strobel and Jaeden Kropivnik. On row 7, we find, I'm going to 100% butcher this, but my Kaziznik and Micah Mixer. On row 8, we find Harry Ward and Isaac Fairweather. Fairweather, of course, had a collision last time out and will be hoping to improve on his P16 as well. On row 9, though, we have Merlijn Roevers and Timo van Haften. Van Haften also had a bit of a moment at the end of the race and was very gutted not to pick up any more points than what he did for the Domehead Racing team. On row 10, we find Philip Kovala and Chloe Lord. Lord making her first appearance this season, after missing out in Portimao, with Tibor Slilagi in 21st, and David Payne will line up alongside him. And on row 12, we find Indy Kirkenbauer and Pim van Gastel. On row 13, we find Anthony Heitzma making his return to the Indy Euro Series alongside Marvin Bernardin making his debut as well. And the last driver that has taken the grid, if my telemetry is telling me right, is Ben Sieber, but Marcel Vogt should line up alongside him. And the last driver on the grid is going to be Verdier Theo. I think it's actually Theo Verdier, but on iRacing it's the opposite. So that is the grid then. It's it's a little bit cooler, the air temperature anyway, than we saw. Well, it's more or less the same temperature actually that we have last time out in Portimao, with 43-degree track temperature. So those alternates are going to be struggling a lot, I think, later on in the race. But it's a gamble, of course, and all the drivers need to put both sets of tyres on the car at some point during the race. The fuel tank won't last until the end, I know as well. So then, of course, it will be, a bit of a mixture based on what they want to do. If they want to try and get a gap, which I think both Franek and Jake will try and build on. But as a little bird as well told me, the humidity is rising rapidly, which means that there is rain on the horizon. That might be something that the front two have calculated, wanting to try and get that gap and box right as the rain arrives. But it does mean, though, that they're going to be vulnerable if that rain stays further ahead compared to the likes of Wojciech Dvorak and Kay Boutzman, as well as the charging pack behind them. It is a right mixture, though, between the compounds of tyres. I mean, there is still the majority on the harder primaries, but I was watching the practice session last night, and there was a lot of problems getting those primaries up to temperature, though. So it is like a little bit of a gamble in that sense. Like, what do you want from this race as a driver? As we look at the driver standings currently, obviously Sikorsky leading the championship from Thomas Wright, with Farley in third, who we won't actually see tonight. That is a big shame, because when we looked at the expected driver grid, we were expecting 37 drivers. We have 27 strong, though, so it is still going to be very exciting and a lot of action on the screen, as the LGR team leading the team's championship, and as I was saying before, Thomas Eng in second, tied on points with Velocity Online Racing. VOR has gained Heitzma this evening, but is missing Eftink. So let's see whether or not Heitzma can provide some more points for his team and extend and close up on the leading LGR team that is missing their lead driver this evening. Obviously, it's a bit difficult to get the manufacturer standings, but anyway, Honda are currently leading the way over Chevrolet on iRacing. Actually, for IES, we gave the drivers the option to pick and choose whether or not they wanted to represent Chevrolet or Honda. But with that said, the safety car will be backing up the pack together. It is going to be Franek Sikorsky who will take the lead onto the main straight as Bernie holds the green flag. Is going to go any second. We hope that, as I said before, we did not see a repeat of that Mugello restart. They're creeping ever closer to the line as we go green flag racing for the second round of the Indy Euro Series, and it is Sikorsky leading the way, but he's challenged already by Jake Williams, who looks to go around the outside into turn one. It's around the outside for Jake Williams. They're still side by side as we see a couple drivers going wide in the background, but it is Sikorsky still leading the way from Williams, Dvorak and Kay Boutzman in fourth. There's actually a couple of drivers that hasn't made the grid or has dropped down due to collisions earlier. I think we saw a couple of drivers as well missing half of their front wings. That is I believe Thomas Wright that was also missing his rear wing, in fact. They have a fast repair to use in this race. So, and it is also a long race with the clouds now ever looming over the track. As we see, it's gotten very, very dark here on the outskirts of Florence, as we see Timo van Haften going off the track. So he's already had an incident as he's lost his left side pod. So there's already been a lot of action on track as Franek Sikorsky has edged a gap about around that second mark. But there's going to be a lot of action to look back on as the race still heats up in the midfield, as we see Isaac Fairweather go very wide off the track and David Payne making a move in the TWG car, Cadillac-themed car, as we're on board with Bernardin, who looks to have lost half of his front wing as well. So there's been a lot of contact on this opening lap, but still no safety car, as we see now Merlin Brewers, and there's actually a lock-up into the pits. We did not see a repeat, thankfully, of drivers coming together on pit entry, but there's been a lot of action on that first lap, resulting in a lot of carbon fiber also being dropped around the track. So this could throw a big spanner into the works of some of the drivers. And with all of that action, obviously, there has been a gap at the front now. Williams has stretched a gap of, around 1.8 seconds down to Dvorak, as we look off board with Anthony Heitzma. He's currently on the back of David Payne, who said, I was speaking with him before the race, he was not expecting to have a worldly of a result, but obviously he had a podium last season at Spa. So he is a driver that on his day, when things go his way, he could be up there fighting for the higher positions. But with the clouds ever looming over the track, you would not, well, anything is possible, I would have to say. Currently watching the battle as well for fourth position. It's the charging Luke Smith, who hasn't made up any position so far from his starting position in fifth, but he will be very, very hungry to get further up in the field, especially considering that he lost so many points last time out in Portimao, and will have to probably use his drop round. The drivers actually have 2 drop rounds to use this season, so there is the, it's not game over in that sense if you have one unfortunate round, but it is something that you'd like to, pick and choose in that sense. If you have a lesser successful weekend, as we see Aman Lal now trying to get past Ben Ford. And he's got the move down the inside. I believe Ford is missing, he's actually missing half of his front wing now. Can't really tell if that is actually another Thomas Eng livery or not, but it actually is another Thomas Eng livery. So whether or not he's been added to the Thomas Eng team, I have no idea, because the management team have not told me yet. So, but he's going to be under very tough pressure so far, as we see Filip Kovala going straight down the inside now of the struggling Thomas Eng car. So I would probably expect to see him back into the pits with only 4 minutes down on the clock. So it's going to be a very long first feature race for some of the drivers here. But that is the duality of Formula Racing, I'll have to say, as we see Franek Sikorsky has actually pulled a 1.3 second gap already to Jake Williams. So it's very interesting to see how the two drivers have approached this race, as Pim van Gastel goes down the inside of David Payne at the last corner, but Payne's going to get a very good run now onto the very long straight, so now he can stretch his legs. All the drivers have the same setup, but it's whether or not how much you want to use. Both drivers actually on the push to pass, so both of these drivers want to have the P15 position. Payne is going to have the outside for turn 1. Van Gastel will have the inside. He's going to be squeezed a little bit to the outside and onto the gravel, but Payne looks to have the pace though. He's on the alternate tyres and Van Gastel goes deep, so David Payne is up into 15th position so far for the Kudu Motorsport Pink driver. And I think that was a little bit of that, tyre advantage / difference that we saw earlier, as the humidity just continues to rise up to 73%. So, it's getting closer to that potential rain cloud, as we saw, as I was talking about earlier. But you know, you see this is Ben Ford dropping down ever further down the field as Ben Sieber is up into 13th position. He's a driver that's, you know, made up a grand total of 14 positions so far. So, you know, shaking off that race start incident that he had last time out with the concertina effect that we saw then. As we see Isaac Fairweather now making his way past Theo Verdier. So another driver that had a very strong start to the last race, as David Payne now goes down the inside of Ben Ford, and I think at this stage he just has to cut his losses, go into the pits, but he decides to stay out, so maybe the rain is closer than we expect. We're just taking a second to look at the data from some of the drivers, and I mean, it is the front two that are certainly the drivers that has the pace today. Sikorsky still running a little bit quicker than Jake Williams, both of them in the mid 130s. Wojciech in third is running 131.1, whilst Sikorsky on a 130.4, with Jake Williams just a half a tenth slower with a 30.5. Otherwise, you know, the higher edges of the midfield are running in the mid 131s. See a lot of decent going on the screen right now as well. But another driver that is great to see back on the grid is Harry Ward, the lone TTM driver that missed round one, but is back here for round two, and he's running a very solid P8 at the moment, charging his former teammate Ewan Langley, who's gone back to Thomas Eng for this championship, and on the push to pass already is Harry Ward, and looks to be making a move into turn one as we ride on board with Langley, and he does not fight it that much, thinks better of it. Still got another 37 minutes left of this race, so a lot can still happen. We might be feeling a little bit of that tyre wear now between for the alternates, as David Payne continues to be making moves now up into 13th position past the very impressive starter in Ben Sieber. So you can, as we ride on board now with the ardent driver of Pim van Gastel, who looks to be sizing up Ben Ford, who, you know, obviously still has that front wing damage, and I think he's just trying to ride it out now until the rain hits, because I don't see any other real reason why he's staying out this long, because he's losing a lot of time, he is, at the moment. So as the racing now calms down a little bit, let's go and have a little look perhaps at what happened at the start of the race that resulted in so many broken front wings, as we take a very lovely look at the scenery here at Mugello. So we go then on to the first lap with, you know, a lot of cars jumbled together. Right off board with Alexander Strobel into turn one, though. It's a bit of a concertina effect. I think that was Thomas Wright there having a spin in the middle of the pack, and that probably is the result of where he lost his rear wing. And yeah, no, there's contact between him and Kostek Solovey, and a lot of drivers now involved in that incident. So let's get another angle of that. And it's down the inside from Wright, and yeah, not really the space given there, and you know, it's quite a slam dunk incident, I say. The stewards will certainly be paying attention to that, and saw a couple of innocent drivers as well on the outside getting caught up with it, one of them being Jerene Koprivnik. As we've had a black flag for Isaac Fairweather, it looks like, as well, as the racing goes on in the meantime. So yeah, trying to go around the outside and being collected from both the side and from the rear. So that is the way it goes sometimes, as we look to see how it was for David Payne now who's, you know, made a very solid recovery. He had to take avoiding action, and he lost a lot of time initially, but I think it paid off in the end for him. As we look at what happened with Timo van Haften, we only caught the aftermath of it. So, you know, he gets squabbled up there, and that was, you know, the coup de motorsport blue driver of Merlijn Roevers, two Dutchmen coming together. And I think there was, you know, a bit of a racing incident in that sense of, you know, a lot of drivers trying to fight for not very much track space, as, you know, the clouds look to be getting even darker as we return back to the action now, with still Franek Sikorsky leading the way, 1.1 seconds, so Williams is ever so much getting closer to the back of the current championship leader. But Solovey is back on the track as well, making use of that fast repair, with Thomas Wright very close behind him. So I think at this stage it's just damage limitations for these drivers. They have made, obviously, one pit stop, so they're not constrained in that sense to the tyre rule, unless they went on to the same type of tyre again. But we'll have to look at that later on in the race. Currently, of course, Fairweather the only driver to withdraw from the race, or to retire from the race with a black flag. I wonder how that happened. Might have to ask him later when I get hold of him. That being said, the racing keeps on going though so far, with you know, Dvorak still running in third. With I think, if the telemetry is telling me correctly, Kay Boutsman is down in 17th. I think that might be just a bit of a desync issue, as unless Kay has made her pit stop. But as we're looking now, still on the recovering Kostek Solovey, trying to find a way past Merlijn Roevers. Track temperature's actually gone down significantly as well at this stage, down to 32 degrees. So, you know, the humidity is more or less the same as it was before, as we see now Roevers making a move on Kirkenbauer. You know, he's under some threat as well from Solovey, but Kirkenbauer does not want to give this one up though. He's going to have the outside though for turn 2. Can Roevers make it stick? Seems to have it stuck. But Kirkenbauer is still on the inside, but had to concede in the end, though. So it's Roevers up into 17th position so far, but Kirkenbauer is going to have to look both forward and backwards now, as he's got the very quick Solovey right behind him. He's going to look to make a move down the inside. Not really the place I was expecting, but he was just having a look, saying to Indy, you know, hey, I'm still here, so if you don't get a move on, I'm going to be making a move on you. But he's losing a little bit of time now to Roevers. Kirkenbauer has not made a pit stop so far, but he looks to be struggling a little bit from some understeer now. He has obviously got some older tyres compared to Roevers, but down the inside we see Solovey. And yeah, due to, as I was saying a little bit before, the ticker is off at the moment just because there's a bit of desync going on at the moment. So we're going to have to go off what we can see and what I can interpret so far. So, but it's still, though, very, very tight at the front of the pack as well between the two leaders. There's been a lot of big gainers so far in this race. Obviously, we saw Ben Sieber earlier, but as we ride on board now with Chloe Lord is on the back of Filip Kovala, as the live timing is started to calm down a little bit now. Chloe Lord up in 11th position, had her best finishing position of 4th last season at Road America, but is making a strong statement here, looking to go down the inside of Kovala. They're going to go side by side into the last chicane. Thinks better of it though. Smart move from Lord, doesn't want to risk too much at the moment, but into the pits now goes Jake Williams. So he strikes first of the front runners, getting off those alternate tyres, but Is it a good strategy, though? We see the rain could be coming as Kovala goes down. Oh, that looked very, very quick into the pit lane. Has he sped, though, Kovala? I think he's gotten away with it, but it was very much on edge as he's lighting up those front tires. He's actually missed his pit box a little bit, so, you know, hot into the pits, trying to make every 10th count as we see, of course, our race lead. There's been a caution on track now. So safety car has been called out, and that could be having some major implications on the race with, of course, Williams already in the pits, and Sikorsky, he's going to get a completely free pit stop now as he approaches the latter stages of the track. He's actually in the 3rd sector now. So safety car has been called out onto the track, and we'd expect to see a lot of drivers jumping into the pits. I think the driver involved in the incident is Teal Verdier. He's got a meatball flag at the moment, so we'll get to see what happened later on as we see Solovey actually without half a front wing. So I believe there's been contact between them two. Let's see if we can get an idea of what happened. So it's Solovey who's gone off track. He's disappeared again. And then I believe there has been a big explosion after that or something. We'll have to guess as iRacing is trolling us. So let's see then what we can get anything from this. And no, we won't. So we'll actually have to guess. But with the puff of smoke that we saw there and the lack of front wing, I expect that he went into the back. I think that was one of the Cuda Motorsport blue drivers. So, you know, definitely not the recovery that Solovey would have wanted. But to have a caution, it still looks like the drivers are going pretty quickly. So, yeah. We've got a ticker that doesn't like us today. We have, you know, iRacing that has implemented teleportation, it seems, for some drivers. And it looks like that we're still running actually under green flag conditions. So ignore what I previously said. No, we're not. We're actually under caution. So that was just the drivers catching up in at the back of the pack. So I have to question everything today, it seems, because the technology, you can never trust technology, as the old generation would like to say. But it has worked out, though, pretty well for Sikorsky. He hasn't pitted, though. That is the main thing that I've just realized. Jake Williams is currently running 11th, and he's done a pit stop. The other driver that has made a pit stop, that is, you know, in a relative, well, that pitted just before the caution, is Filip Kovala. He's running in 15th at the moment. Everyone else in the top 10 has not made a pit stop yet. So this could be, you know, a masterstroke from the likes of Kovala, from the likes of, and of course Jake Williams, who by pure instinct or, you know, guesswork, decided to box half a lap before the safety car got called out. So, yeah, no, this could hand, you know, the race lead and, you know, the race itself straight into Williams' hands, and Kovala's, you know, could be looking to get his best result in his short tenure here in the Indy Euro Series. And as we go, we stay under caution, we can have a quick look at what is next here in the Indy Euro Series. Obviously, we'll have a break week next week, and so there'll be nothing, so the drivers can have a little bit of a break, get some of that motivation back up before we head over the Atlantic to the Charlotte 150 for our first oval race of the season. We have 3 oval races actually planned for season 2. Second one being the Maconi. Let me just make sure I pronounce it correctly, it is the Marconi setup shop Indy 250, which will actually have its own separate prize pool compared to all the other races. As we'll see now, the pit lane is open, and into the box goes basically everyone that did not pit. And, you know, this is going to put a big grin, I believe, on Jake Williams' smile as he now takes over the race lead, I would have presumed. But Sikorsky seems to have stayed out on track. So now then, and this is actually incredible to say as well. I pointed out at the start of the race with that one of the drivers got caught out on the outside. Jaeden Kropivnik, he was running at the very, very end of the pack. He's now up into 5th position now from this safety car, because he pitted right. Well, actually, I believe that was right when the safety car got called out. He's only got 1 lap on those tyres, and he will certainly, I think, at this stage, be able to stretch them out to the very end of this dry period. And this has been absolutely disastrous, though, for our previous race leader in... for Sikorsky, because, you know, he's out here on 13-lap old alternates. I know for a fact that the fuel tank, if you go flat out, can only last 12 laps. So either he's been absolutely fuel saving at the moment for like the first part of the race, or he's basically running on fumes at this stage. So he's going to be praying for that rain to arrive as soon as possible, hopefully for his sake, and that during this safety car period, because otherwise, you know, he hasn't decided to pit while basically the entire field has done that. Yeah, so we have, of course, Williams, Kovala, Payne, and Kropivnik on the primary tyre. Behind them, though, there's going to be 2 very, very quick runners on the alternates. We saw that there was a big disparity in the tyre warm-up between the 2 compounds of tyres. I've actually checked my radar, and it looks like we might just about miss this rain period, though. It's scheduled for around 50 minutes time, so we're actually going to miss it. But it is approaching, and it might actually play a big factor in the next coming sprint race, as Ewan Langley has actually picked up a black flag under safety car conditions. I wonder what that was for. So we will... So there has been a driver that has been waved around. Micah Mix has got a wave round to rejoin the back of the pack. But from my info that I currently have at hand, it is not a penalty that's been handed down by the stewards or race control. So whatever Ewan has done under the safety car, as we see now, Sikorsky deciding to box now. So yeah, his gamble unfortunately did not pay off for him, and it's going to be a very long end of the feature race as we now look to go green again here in the Indy Euro Series. As Sikorsky has actually picked up a black flag as well on pit entry. So it goes from bad to worse for Sikorsky, as Jake Williams has basically been handed, you know, the race lead and a very, very strong position to take victory here in the feature race, as we ride on board with Koprivnik, who looks to be making a move on David Payne. 2 drivers benefiting a lot from this safety car and the earlier incidents. I think there's actually been contact as well for Ben Sieber. Merlin Rouvers has also picked up a black flag, and the caution has been called out straight away again. So safety car after safety car, and I think this is a big helping hand for Sikorsky. Gonna have a look at what caused that caution. I think there was a big pile-up on the exit of turn 1. Right off board with Rouvers, the driver picking up a black flag, and into the back he goes, and that is Pim van Gastel also going into the side of him. Rouvers losing his rear wing, and that is going to be, you know, his chances of a very good position. Unfortunately, I think over for him. You know, just ran into the back of the driver in front, and then picking up a penalty, I believe, for incident limit. And, you know, Van Gastel can't really do much. Good job, though, from the drivers behind to get out the way, not get into the back of the drivers that were stationary in a not super safe position, I would have to say. But so then, with that said, second caution, second safety car, back out on track. And I was expecting before the race, with the fuel tanks only lasting about 12, 13 laps, that there was going to be a two-stopper. At this stage, I don't think, if they're fuel saving correctly, they might get away with only a one-stop. Especially, you know, the drivers that boxed right when the safety car got called out with... as you see now, obviously, Filip Kovala having a very, very impressive race so far for the Domehead Racing team. Up from 19th all the way to 2nd, 17 positions. But he's not the most impressive gainer so far. That's the driver right behind him, David Payne, up a grand total of 19 positions. So it is about planning and having a bit of lady luck on their side. See, I did say as well earlier that David Payne, when things go his way, he has a tendency to, you know, find his way up places where he probably wouldn't have expected himself to find. But this has certainly shaken up the grid a lot so far, with obviously Williams still in the lead from Koval in 2nd and Payne in 3rd, Kropivnik in 4th, with Dvorak now in 5th. And Luke Smith in 6th. Aman Lal has gained a couple positions as well, is running 7th for the VOR team, with Kay Batsman dropping down ever so slightly into 8th. And Alexander Strobel as well, making another strong appearance here in 9th, with Harry Ward in 10th. So the biggest, well, loser you'd have to say, though, is still Sikorsky, that had to box right as we went green, but has been saved a little bit now by the safety car coming back out on track with about 16 minutes left of the race. And I think this is going to play into the alternate runners' hands quite a bit here, because not only is the clock ticking down, which obviously then means that, you know, they're going to be able to push a lot harder, but the primary tyres, they're going to take that little bit extra time now as well, with the fact that we only had, you know, about a sector worth of green flag running. So they're going to go back to being ice cold again. And with the fact that it takes about, you know, 2-3 laps for them to heat up properly, I think there's going to be, you know, a lot of movement around that top 7 position, with the likes of Dvorak, Smith and Lal all on the alternates, versus the top 4 all on the harder primary tyre. We saw obviously Kropivnik looking for a way down the inside of David Payne into turn 1, but it didn't work out for him that time. Micah Mix has been waved round again, so I believe he's going to actually rejoin onto the lead lap again. So that is great to see that we're going to get another driver back into the racing pack again. Fairweather has not come out on track again, so he is still the only retirement so far. Rouvers has a black flag. I believe he hasn't served it yet, but I would assume that he's going to do it as soon as possible. Still one more lap at least of safety car running. So I think see a couple drivers now opting to go into the pits with 14 minutes to go. It's actually a fair few of them that I was not expecting. Maybe just to fit on, to top up a little bit of fuel. Actually, we were running pretty close now to that threshold. Whether or not they can make, get away with saving 1 or 2 laps to not have to make that other pit stop. These drivers, I do believe, did not have the fuel economy to do so. Koprivnik being one of them, who was running all the way up in 4th, is now going to rejoin the back of the pack. It's going to be very, very tight between all of these guys. So now it's shaken up the field quite a bit, actually. Ben Ford now, who was struggling so much to, keep himself on track and keep up track position. He's now up into 9th with Tibor Zliga. It's going to be Tibor for the rest. I'm so sorry for the pronunciation there. Running all the way up in 7th, and Harry Ward now up into 6th. As we approach ever so closer to the last 12 minutes of the race, the lights on the safety car have been turned off. This has, I believe as well, been the last time the safety car can be called out as well in the feature races, because in the Indy Euro Series, there is a limit to the amount of safety cars that can be called out, due to the fact that we had basically a safety car every other lap last season at Road Atlanta. So after some pretty smart conversations between the drivers and the race director, we decided to come to a consensus that we'll try and limit the amount of safety cars for the feature races to a grand total of 2. That limit exceeds up to 3 for the full 1 hour, 10-minute races. And for the sprint races, I believe that can only be a one occurrence where the safety car can be called out. Because again, we're here for racing. We're not here for Abu Dhabi 2021. We haven't had a situation like that in IES, and I hope we don't do either, unless you're a real DTS fan yourself. Manufacturers as well, we see a lot of Hondas now in the top 10, so that's going to help them climb ahead of the Chevys in the Manufacturers Championship. There's nothing on the line there in terms of prize money. It's just as a fun thing that the admins of the league thought of for the season, because obviously in the real IndyCar series there is the option between the Chevys and the Hondas. On iRacing there's just the Dallara IR18, so we don't get to choose about that. But then, as I said, of course, the lights on the safety car have been shut off as the drivers now try and get some temperature into their tires. As I said, the rain will not hit this race. It is very heavy though. From what it looks from the radar that I could see, as Jake Williams will be having control of the field as we head into the last 10 minutes of the race. We're not going to reach that 31 lap distance, unfortunately, but that is how it goes. Single file on the restart, everyone wanting to pick up a tow. So it's Jake Williams now that's going to lead us onto the 17th lap, and he's gone halfway down the straight. No concertina effect as it looked like, and it's green flag running until the end of the race. And I already saw Thomas Wright making a move on Alexander Strobel, as we see almost 3 wide behind them into turn 1. As it's Kovala having to defend from both David Payne and Wojciech Dvorak. Dvorak obviously on those alternate tyres is going to swoop round the outside. Payne hits the curb on the inside, but he can't really defend at this stage. He's going to try and hang on around the outside. Smith is going to look to go past him as well. Payne does not find it too much. You know, his points are up for grabs here, as we see Langley now defend the inside from a man Lau, who makes a move around the outside as we head into the fast swooping sector. And Kostek Solove, who was involved in the incident in the previous safety car, is now looking to make a move past him as well on the primary tyre. We see a lot of moving down into the Arabiatas, I believe they're called. Beautiful section of the track. Flat in a Formula 1 car. I do not know if it's flat in an Indy car. Maybe with quali fuel and some fresh hot tyres. But we see now Smith on the attack now on Dvorak. He's going to stay around the outside. Both drivers on the same type of tyre. But with all this fighting, though, Williams has pulled a lovely 2-second gap. So he's sitting pretty up at the front of the pack. But a driver making moves though down the field is Timo van Haften, who was gutted obviously with his late race spin last time out that to cost him a lot of points, and he's on the attack on Tibor now into turn 1. All the drivers on the push to pass as well, because there hasn't, obviously they've had a little bit to spare now as we see now Tibor defend the inside, but that's going to allow Ben Ford to creep down the inside of Van Haften into turn 1. He's going to try and hold the inside, but he's got the outside now for the next right-hander of turn 3. But, you know, Tivo's almost being a bit of a roadblock here for Van Haften as Ford swoops around both of them. So the Thomas Eng driver showing that, you know, he's back in the running and he wants to fight for this championship. And Van Haften goes now down the inside, so Tibor losing out on 2 positions in the span of half a lap. And he's got to be careful because he's got the fast approaching Kirkenbauer behind him. See Micah Mixer in the mix of all things. Yeah, I got that one. But with that said, he's actually picked up a black flag as well as Jaeden Koprivnik, as we see Harry Ward showing off his best rally skills. That's not going to gain him any time as he now has to defend from Tibor. So, you know, there's action all over the place now with only 7 minutes to go here in the feature race. So let's ride on board now with Harry Ward to see. We only saw the aftermath of it. So he's on the attack of Payne. He's going to look down the inside, sends it there. Payne on the outside. Was there contact between the two of them? Just the slightest, I think, and that's, you know, just acted almost like it sucked all the speed out of Harry as the gravel trap there. As we now look at Luke Smith, who's made his way up into the podium positions, hunting down Wojciech Dvorak, and the gap to the leader has come down ever so slightly, and down the inside goes Kirkenbauer on Tibor. Hasn't got those primaries up to temperature so far, and Aman Lal is now looking to make it another overtake for him. So Tibor is dropping down ever so much in the field. And I did say there was going to be, now down the inside goes Lal, but Tibor's not going to let it go. Has to concede, I think, as now Solove finds a way down the inside as well. So those primaries definitely not up to temperature for Tibor. And now he's under attack by Strobel, and there's contact between the two of them. Strobel somehow keeping the car in the right direction, so he gets some skill points for that one. And now on the attack is Kay Boutsman. So Tibor dropping from the middle of the top 10 now into the clutches of the charging pack down in 13th and 14th. So Boutsman's going to have the inside. Tibor's going to try and hang it round the outside, but into the marbles he goes. But he's got to go, and he's actually lost it on traction. Spun across the track, no one collecting him, thankfully. So, that's so unfortunate to see for Tibor. Was doing such a good job earlier, but obviously he has another race to contend with. So he just has to try and, accept it, try and make the best out of the situation at the moment, and just try and refocus now as you see Payne defending from Timo Van Haften. Van Haften on the softer compounded tyre. Actually now, I did say this before, but I was expecting the harder compounds to fall off at the start of the stint, especially with the fact that we had basically 2 safety car periods in a row. So, and obviously the fact that the track conditions have gotten so much cooler now, all the way down to 29 degrees from the start of 42 that we had earlier. But the battle continues for second position. Dvorak is holding position for the moment, but Luke Smith, knowing him, he will definitely want to take this one if he wants to mount his title hunt on Williams now that Sikorsky is down in 14th position. Currently, reverse grid pole is in Thomas Wright's favour. So, you know, Smith tucking right behind the Thomas N car down the long main straight. There's going to be a car exiting the pit lane right in front of them, so that could complicate things a lot. But round the outside of turn one goes Luke Smith. Can he keep it? He can't really. Dvorak fights back. Smith is going to have the inside. There's a lap car on the outside, but it is Smith down the inside, and he's got second place for the moment. But can he keep it, though? Dvorak is a very quick driver, and he's shown it all throughout qualifying. He actually out-qualified Smith in with his third place position. So he's back to where he started. Smith up into second from his 5th position, but there's still a lot of gainers just behind them. Obviously, Kovala up 14, Payne up 16, Kirkenbauer up 14. So, you know, it is any man's guess who is going to come out on top. As we see, I believe that was the lap car taking avoiding action, so we appreciate it. There is still another race for you to get your redemption as we ride on board with Timo van Haften, who is still not gone past the Cadillac-themed Cuda Motorsport pink driver. So Kirkenbauer, I believe there was contact then between him and a man loud. We saw a man's front wing falling off. So Kirkenbauer down into 11th position, and Solovey takes full opportunity of that. Let's ride on board and see what happened here between the two of them. So Lal behind him into the braking zone. He goes for it down the inside, and I believe there was a lot of netcode there between them, because the amount of contact between the VOR car and the Votive machine was, in my opinion, not enough, and he's unfortunately also picked up a black flag for that Kirkenbauer. So that just shows how close the drivers are running to the limit as well, not just in terms of pace, but also in terms of track limits and incident points. So it is a track where it's very, very easy to exceed iRacing's track limits. With obviously you want to carry as much speed as possible, but the man that's carrying a lot of speed at the moment obviously is Jake Williams. He's extended his gap back up to 2.4 seconds as the battle still continues in the midfield for that 6th position now. Basically a bit of a train almost all the way down to Strobel in 11th for this 6th position. See Harry Ward now looking for a move on Van Haften. Van Haften was looking earlier on the back of Payne, but just shows how quickly it can change and how tight this field is. If you don't move forward, you're going to be moving backwards and having to look in the mirror, and Ward goes very deep there. Does it allow Laulau to get down the inside? There's almost contact between the two of them. As I think, with that said before, with the netcode, as Laulau looks to make a move down the inside into the last corner, Ward does not defend it. It's going to be very tight between the two of them. We saw netcode between Kirkenbauer and Lal before.
Hi friends, producer here, Julien Altena. Apparently Philip Ansell is having some microphone issues, so we'll give this one the finish it deserves. Currently looking at the battle for P7 with Timo van Haften, Aman Lal and Harry Ward. Looks like the leaders on the last lap of the race coming through the final couple of corners already. So Jake Williams looking to claim his first win of the season after being taken out of contention last week. Of course, a good recovery drive for him, but finally he is going to be able to get his first win in the bag. out of the last corner. Jake Williams is going to win the race, but we have to keep an eye on the battle for P7 in the background, so we'll switch our attention to that right away as Van Haften goes defensive into the final corner. Aman Lal looking to get the better exit, but not able to do so. Unless he can get a run on the line, it's going to be close. It's going to be a photo finish. Oh, I think Aman, he just barely missed him. By a couple of thousandths of a second. You can see on the ticker, 6 1,000ths of a second is the difference between Van Haften and Lal. As Thomas Wright completes the top 15 in the background. What a finish that was for the 7th position. We'll quickly try and find a replay from it. On board with Aman Lal here.
I think my headset actually completely died there, so I hope I did not miss anything. Oh, that is an absolute disaster for me, but just look how close it was between the two of them across the line. But it is just Van Haften edging ever so slightly ahead of Aman Lal. But with that said, we would like to invite Jake Williams if he wants to have a quick interview with us before we go on to a break, as the drivers have a bit of a cool down period now between the sprint and feature race. I believe that but yeah, man, what an incredible first race we had here in round two. I mean, those safety car periods certainly shuffled up the field quite a bit, and it played into certain drivers' hands, obviously, but and certain drivers not. But it's going to make for a very, very interesting sprint race. 25 minutes with the potential for rain. So with that said, we're going to go on to a quick break for a couple minutes while the drivers also get to have a bit of a drink in between and get themselves resettled for the 25-minute sprint race that will be coming right up in just a moment. So don't go anywhere, everybody. And with that said, we're right back now with a couple seconds left to go of the warm-up before the sprint race gets underway, with, of course, Jake Williams taking victory ahead of Luke Smith and Wojciech Dvorak in third. Ben Ford ended up in fourth with Filip Kovala, David Payne, Timo van Haften, Aman Lal, Harry Ward, Kostek Solove, and Alexander Strobel, your top 10. But reverse grid pole position actually goes the way of Tibor. So it ended up playing in his favor. And with that said as well, when we return, obviously, the wipers are on the safety car, which means that there is rain in the air and the promise of a fully wet Grand Prix, well, sprint weekend, is not completely out the way. So the rain did not hit the feature race, but it has arrived for the sprint race, and it is going to be staying. So this is going to really test the drivers. Who is going to be able to adapt the best to these very, very tricky conditions? They're not going to have any practice whatsoever before this in the wet. So it's going to be 100% on the drivers themselves to just adapt and come out on top. But as you said, as I said earlier, it is going to be Tibor Zilagi on pole position with Thomas Wright alongside him. So he made a move in the feature race, but it cost him pole position for the sprint. That is certainly something that would have been playing in his mind. Second position is certainly nothing wrong with that, with Chloe Lord lining up in third, with Franek Sikorski in fourth after having to take that that pit stop right before the safety car went into the pits. So still we got 29 strong grid taking on the, I believe it is quite, let me actually double check the track conditions. It's very lightly wet, and something that is very intriguing to me, we have two runners on dry tyres. Them two being Kostek Solove in 7th position and Isaac Fairweather in 29. So with the track only being very lightly wet, it looks way wetter. Well, actually, it looks very dry, but with the raindrops pouring down on the camera lens, but there isn't a lot of spray though. That is one thing that iRacing certainly has got a little bit to work on in that sense, is the track, the wetness in that sense, so you can see if it's wet or not, because it says it's very lightly wet, but it will look like this when it is definitely time for wet tyres as well. So has Solove and Fairweather played an absolute masterstroke here with starting on the dry tyres, or is it going to be too wet? No, there is quite a lot more spray here though in the middle part of the track. So but only time will tell, I presume, as we ride on board with Hay Boutsman, obviously, who had a very strong start to the race, but got caught out later on in it, and is going to line up 5th now. Obviously, iRacing does do it better than most sims as well, with the simulation of how weather behaves on the track though. So it's probably going to be wetter on some parts of the track where there's a bit of a hill. So but yeah, that only adds to the realism of how it is here in real life, as you know, the rain just continues to pour. And if my radar is telling me correctly, we're basically in a yellow patch, which is quite moderate rain. There is going to be an orange patch even hitting the track later on in the race. So that means there's going to be close to heavy rain. But it's going to be a matter of if Solove and Fairweather can make the most out of these dry tyres when the track is at its driest. It's only going to get worse and worse from here. But they could It's actually moderately wet at this stage, so it's changed very, very quickly. So it was worth a gamble for sure, I think, for the two drivers, but I believe they're going to struggle quite a bit now at the start of the race. But I could be very, very wrong. They could have some there's some interesting magic grip tyres as well. You never know. But then, with all of the rambling out the way, it's going to be as we actually can see now, quite a bit of standing water on the inside of the last corner. It's going to be Tibor Gilagi who has control of the field as we go racing for the second and final time this evening here, as Solovey is actually jumping straight into the pits. That is going to cost them a penalty as well, I'm afraid. So it's going to go from bad to worse for Solovey as Tibor now gets us underway for the sprint race here. A lot of wheel spin as they go racing into turn one. A lot of spray as well, so it's going to be difficult to see behind. Thomas Wright has actually taken the lead already into turn one, I believe, as you see Kirkenbauer having... Oh, there's a big contact! That's Jake Williams! So the race winner from last time out is gone flying across the track. He's somehow not broken his car completely. Safety car cannot be called out on the first lap, and that's just shown how treacherous it is out there on track. It is Franek Sikorsky's gone all the way past everyone up into first position as the drivers squabble for track position and a little bit of grip, but there's contact between Chloe Lord and Aman Lal as they go down the inside. It just shows how quickly it's rained here. It's basically like a river, and Lal is trying to go for a switchback now on Lord, down around the outside, just trying to find the grip. Lord has to concede for the moment, but tries to stick around the outside now as we head into the Arabiatas. And Lord goes all the way around the outside, just showing the different lines and where you've got to try and find grip. And off the track now goes Kirkenbauer, so it goes from bad to worse for him, unfortunately. And down the inside now, just ahead of them all, is Ben Ford making a move on our pole sitter, Gilagi, who's dropping down a little bit now, down to sixth position, but it's Sikorsky at the front from Thomas Wright and Boutsman up into third. And down the inside now goes Lord! Hasn't paid off this time, goes off the track, but keeps the car facing in the right direction, losing out to Aman Lal, who's looking very squabbly through the final chicane. As we try and, check out and see where everyone has ended up at the start of the first lap. It's been very, very hectic so far. Philip Kovala has picked up a meatball flag as well in 12th position. So it's been super, super hectic so far. And into the pits goes Kovala. So unfortunately for him, not the sprint race he would have wanted. There is still the possibility of a safety car. And with the rain being the way it is, I would not be surprised if we saw it come out at some point this race. But the beauty of these wet races, though, it is all about, confidence. It's all about just knowing the car, feeling the track, and finding the grip when nobody else has it. And we see Ewan Langley now attacking Timo van Haften, who was very squabbly on the exit, found a puddle, which, it's actually hammering it down at this moment. I mean, we're running close to what you would call a red flag conditions in real life, as we see Alexander Strobel now dropping down a couple positions down into fifth place, as Ben Ford has made an absolutely stonking start to this race, up 9 positions into fourth place. Now he's certainly someone that appreciates the rain more than some others might do. You can just see the differences in lines, though, that the drivers are taking. Strobel trying to go a bit wider there on exit as well, trying to go off that rubbered line, because what iRacing does very well compared to other... Actually, before I say that... no, I take that back. I thought Strobel was missing half of his front wing, as he's under pressure now straight away from Lal. I'll come back to my point later on in the race, but the action on track is certainly as tense as expected. Luke Smith, though, all the way down in 18th position. So our top two from the first race currently running 24th and 18th. So this rain has certainly, not benefited any of them so far. Smith actually up into 17th now as he tries to make a move on another driver, with now Boutsman under threat from Ford, and actually 2 drivers going straight on at turn 1. That's Boutsman and Lal, both of them going straight on. So aquaplane, that just shows how much water has been left out onto the track. The cars themselves will be oh my god, Boutsman almost lost it into turn 2. So it just shows how treacherous the track is at the moment. It's all about staying on the black stuff and not going offline too much and into those very, very slippery marbles. So let me just actually go back and check on... Yeah, no, it's still moderately wet, but it's just going to get worse and worse as the rain continues to intensify here in the sprint race. And it's all about, like I was saying earlier, trying to find the grip when nobody else finds it. And that's what, to be honest, I love about the iRacing rain system, as Tibor Shilagi is trying to find grip now into the Arabiatas. It's, you know, you have to try and find grip, and Boutsman's definitely not going to find any grip on the grass. Somehow keeps the car ahead of Aman Lal. Both drivers, obviously, that went straight on at turn 1. And, you know, and I think Lal has actually picked up a little bit of front wing damage. You can see that left end plate pointing up ever so slightly. In these conditions, I don't think it's going to affect him too much, as Boutsman has a big slide heading into the last chicane. I think Lal has just found a way past the M-Plower driver, as, you know, there is battles all over the place, as Chloe Lord is dropping down heavily now in the field from her 5th place all the way down to 12th. So, you know, there's the incidents happening all over the place as we now ride on board with Merlin Rovers, and into the pits goes Boutsman. So deciding to pit very early, the drivers still, they do not have to change tyre compounds now that it is a declared wet session, but they do not have, I believe, the fuel to make it to the end. The wet does help them significantly with the fuel burn, but I do not think it's going to be enough to make it to the end, and I think Boutsman has thought better of it. Let's go into the pits. Let's try and get some clean air, not be in this battle, just trying to find my own rhythm. And then, because obviously the spray is a big factor. You do not want to sit right behind him as we ride on board with Kirkenbauer. You can see just how much less visibility he has when he goes behind the Cuda Motorsport pink car of David Payne. But he's looked to have a very good run through the middle of the corner, but just did not have enough oomph at the end to get past the TWG liveried car as we head into the Arabiata's beautiful, again, section of corners, but very tricky in these conditions, because you want to run the optimal line through there, but that line is very greasy, and it does not allow you to get any sort of grip whatsoever. But Micah Mixer is also having a very strong race for the newly formed WowTiv team, up 14 positions so far, running in eighth place. But the battle at the front is heating up though, and just as we saw last week out between Thomas Wright and Franek Sikorsky, it's them two at the very front of the field, making the most out of the treacherous wet conditions here in Mugello. Slightly different lines as well into turn one. Sikorsky going all the way around the outside into turn one. And what I was going to say is we see Indy Kirkenbauer now might have the move on Payne. Both of the drivers on the push to pass. You can just see how much spray is being kicked up behind these Dallara IR18 cars. Kirkenbauer goes very deep into the corner, but the car does grip up around the outside, as we see Gilagi and Smith go around side by side as well. And it looks like Kirkenbauer's got it at the end. So what I was going to say, and what is shown on track as well when we watch the drivers, is the different types of lines that they're taking. Some sims do not simulate puddles and the rain the same way that iRacing does, and especially with the rubbered line, that you have to basically feel it around the outside. As we see Smith now go very deep into the fast swooping left right-left chicane. But he's got some insane grip around the outside. He just zoomed past Kirkenbauer, who seemed to have had a bit of a moment there. There is gravel on the outside line as well. So, you know, they just have to find the grip where the rubbered line is not. And down the inside of Julien, and there's just a bit of contact between Smith and Tibor. And Kirkenbauer finds a way past now around the outside, but it finds a puddle as well on the exit. And is going to be held up. So Julien looks to have got the move back around the outside. Can he keep hold of it though? It looks like he's got it for the moment. But yeah, now, oh, there's a driver go very slowly there. That's David Payne. So I wonder if he's got some sort of problem or not, because the car looked very, very slow. That was a weird place to see the car go at that speed as well. As Kirkenbauer now back up into 12th position, and Luke Smith now running in 10th, who's just gotten past the recovering Chloe Lord for the Empower team, who had a moment losing out a lot of positions, was running 5th earlier in the race. And like I was saying earlier, I mean, you have to try and find the grip and use the karting line in that sense of, you know, driving off the rubbered line. As you see, as soon as Chloe goes back onto the rubbered line, you can just see there's just not enough grip there, and that's simply due to the fact that oil plus water equals slippery. But the gap though at the front has extended up to a total of 2 seconds. I think there was a mistake from Wright in a previous lap. Sikorsky, no, actually, I believe that's just Sikorsky running an incredible pace. He's running 52.5 at the moment. Thomas right behind 53.9, so a grand total of 1.4 seconds last lap. Sikorsky got the fastest lap of the race as well by quite a margin as well. So he's certainly a driver feeling the flow of the track, and obviously he's benefiting quite a bit from the fact that he's the driver at the very front with completely clean air. But you know, another driver that's doing very well so far is Alexander Stroebel, up into 4th place from his well, he's actually started in 6th, but he's done a very good job regardless of that. And Harry Ward as well in 5th. So a couple drivers unfortunately had to retire from the race. Ewan Langley and Isaac Fairweather being 2 of them. Theo Verdier and Marvin Bernardin running as well a little bit further down, as well as Mike Kuziznik. As Jake Williams is actually all the way down in 25th as well, and that just shows how quickly it can go from being your day to not being your day, as Micah Mixer is showing exactly how it can go the opposite way, from 22nd up into 7th, and he's looking to make a move on a man Lal. So he's certainly a driver that loves these mixed, well, it's not even mixed, it's completely wet conditions here at Mugello. So and another driver that's also had a very strong race is obviously Merlin Rouvers. He's up 17 positions as well. So it's just showed who is, you know, feeling it and who might not be as comfortable in the rain. It is not the most popular thing, I know for a fact, in at least the GT series. People do not like the rain for some reason. I personally absolutely love it. So it shows who is comfortable, who maybe has a little bit more practice in it. We ride off board with Merlin Rouvers, the 2 Cuda Motorsport Blue drivers running close together on track. Smith is also a driver that has recovered quite a bit. It's up actually only 5 positions, but from his, reverse grid second last place in that sense. He's trying to get his way past his teammates. I don't think there's going to be too much squabbling between the 2 of them, as we see Mike Mixer going ever so wide on the exit of the last corner, and that just shows how quickly it can go from, you know, being on a roll, slight mistake, as Aman Lal now looks to make a move on a lapped car. He's still carrying a little bit of that front wing damage. He decides to go narrow into turn 1. It's interesting to see the line differences as well, as we see Harry Ward and I believe that is right in front of him, taking a completely different line around the outside. As there's been a moment for Filip Kovala, who, as that is actually as well, he's actually picked up a black flag, and the other one is Wojciech Dvorak, both drivers picking up black flags. So, not the races they would have wanted. Dvorak obviously had a way better feature race than... actually, it's not. He didn't have a brilliant race, actually. In fact, as Pim van Gastel went... It goes a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1. With only 10 minutes to go, though, the field is relatively spread out, I must say, though. You know, Sikorsky at the front of the pack. He's lapping about 0.8 quicker than Thomas Wright right behind him. As Jake Williams puts his nose down the inside. He's gone into the pits early and he's picked up more front wing damage, has the reigning champion. Who's right on the back of Van Gastel. He's in 15th position. So, and with, you know, a strong feature race, it's not, you know, a race he would want to, you know, use his drop round on, I'm sure of. You know, it's about making the most out of the situations. I'm sure of that. As Solove now gets past Koprivnik, one of the two Slovenian drivers on the grid. His teammate is having a race to forget down in 25th. But positions, every position matters here in IES, as I believe every driver that is within the 70th, well, I believe in these races it's actually 90% rule, actually scores a point as Williams gets past Van Gastel. As you can just see how much spray there is and how big the puddles are in that chicane. So it does not surprise me that we've seen so many excursions and moments happen. So then let's go back and have a look, as yeah, that is the incident we saw earlier with Dvorak and Jake Williams into turn 1, and yeah, just gets collected from behind Dvorak. Williams not maybe seeing him, so goes in the middle between two drivers, has a little bit of contact, and just come together a bit there. And Williams surprisingly picking up quite a, well, not as much damage as I was expecting, as we see now. Yeah, slight net code, and then over the top, and round she goes. Surprised he did not pick up much suspension damage there. I wonder what kind of suspension they're developing there in the IES purple team, as Solove now goes round. So yeah, that was actually from earlier in the race, as we see. Yeah, Chloe Lord as well dropping down a little bit. That's probably the place where she lost position, and that's Bernardin having contact with another driver. I didn't really catch who it was, but yeah, on the exit, and yeah, two drivers going side by side, and yeah, not really much the quickly approaching driver in the background could do, unfortunately. They were fighting for position, and then they see a strucken car basically facing halfway across the track. So it's a real shame, but racing happens, and got to move on from it. But there's actually been a positional change for second place, and I think that there's been something happened to Sikorsky. He's dropped from first down to third. I wonder if that's just live timing. I don't think it is, because now Ben Ford has gone all the way from 13th position up to the front of the pack, and he's leading the way. So we will probably get a replay of what happened to Sikorsky a bit later. But he looked like he was just, you know, doing his own thing at the very front of the pack. So as we look at the beautiful views here of the Tuscan countryside, we will be returning back to the action, as the technology is not on our side today, unfortunately. Let's see if we can get a view of it into turn 1. No, we won't. So it's now Ben Ford in the lead from Thomas Wright and Felix Sikorsky in third position. Harry Waters just made a position on Aman Lal. Lal has actually dropped down to 6th position. Make that 7th position. So I wonder whether... Yeah, no, something significant must have happened to Lal here, because he's dropped, from 4th all the way down to 8th as we now look on the battle for 2nd position. These guys were fighting it out for the lead earlier. It's for 2nd place, as Sikorsky now up into 2nd position is going to give Wright a lovely cloud of spray to try and negotiate into turn 1. He's gone actually deep! Almost half lost the car as he touched the white line on the exit, but Sikorsky showing brilliant car control, holding it together as Wright goes deep there. They've got to be careful, though, the drivers, because they are still... they still have the same 15 incident limit threshold that they have to abide by, as they had in the feature race. And with the rain, it does not give you any benefit of the doubt. 15 incident points is all you get. And then Sikorsky's gone round! So it's gone from bad to worse for the race leader! That's how quickly it can go! So look, well, he has quite a significant gap, though, for his sake. So he is going to rejoin in 3rd position, only loses out to Wright, but I think that is race win out of the water for Sikorsky. And that just shows how quickly it can go, as we see now Lal down the inside of Van Haften. He's got half a front wing on his car. Van Haften's going to try and get the switch back down into the Arabayatas, and Lal goes off the track, and there's not going to be any grip there whatsoever as the rain continues to intensify, and it's only going to get worse and worse from here for the drivers. But, Ben Ford is running quite nicely there in 1st position, 7 seconds down to Wright. But as we saw with Sikorsky, as now Ford decides to box with 4 minutes to go on the clock, so the fuel did not last, I think, for him. Question is it going to last for Wright? He stays out on track, so he's going to inherit the lead. He's going to get some of those juicy lap lead points as well. So Ford deciding to box early compared to the front runners. So might we see them, the other two, come in quite soon, as we see Tibor now on the back of Thomas Wright. Tibor is actually a little bit further down the field, if I don't recall. Actually, the live timing is giving me a headache, so I'm not going to look at that, as we see Strobel now down the inside of Luke Smith into turn 1. So there's 3 minutes left on the clock. Pit stops are on the cards for some of the drivers, perhaps, as Smith now tries to go around the outside. He's actually gone off the track and into the gravel trap, and that's not going to give him any speed whatsoever, as he tries to somehow recover back onto the race line right in front of Timo Van Haften, who's going to get the position just about, and he's going to cut right across the Kudu Motorsport driver, as Smith is struggling to keep that car on the track at the moment. I was going to say something. There are a couple drivers picking up black flags, 2 of them being Jake Williams and Kay Boutsman. So it's going from bad to worse for both of them. And the gap now from Wright to Sikorsky, it's gone down to 1 second again. So it's all to play for here in the last minutes. Sikorsky's actually gone in front of Wright now. I think they have... No, he might have actually gone into the pits now, Wright. We'll have to have a look and see that later, as we watch the battle, obviously, between Strobel and Ben Ford. So it was a quick splash and dash for Ford. Only 28 seconds in the pits, as Anthony Heitzma as well, I believe, is maybe gone into the pits with David Payne. So it's Sikorsky now. He's in the lead by 5 seconds. So something quite mysteriously must have happened to Wright. He's not deciding to pit, though. So I wonder whether or not they've been fuel saving enough to make it to the end. Ford is 9 seconds off the lead at the moment, as we're on the final lap now of the race. So Sikorsky has actually done a brilliant job here. He's played the timer absolutely perfectly, as we're going to ride on board here with him. So he's lifted off. We're actually on board with Thomas Wright at the moment. So I believe he's lifted off, right before the line. So he's not going to get that extra lap. So he might actually, keep this in the end, Sikorsky. if he can keep the car on track. That being said, it's only 2 seconds between the front two, as Ben Ford now goes up into third position. As we ride on board with Sikorsky. It's 2 seconds now between the two of them, but we've seen him gone round before. Can he keep it on the island? He's got half a track to manage, though. He has a very good gap, though, but you can see how wet it is and how much he's struggling to keep the car going in a straight line, as Micah Mixer and Strobel are fighting it out, with Strobel losing out. But, you know, it is absolutely everything to play for here, as Williams and Solovey are going side by side into turn one. But it is obviously the final lap of the race. I think Ford has gone deep, as also Jake Williams goes deep into turn one. So, you know, it's action all over the place, with Ford now back up into third and Luke Smith in fourth position. But if nothing happens in the last corner, he's got a lapped car right in front of him. But he has spun around. He has led the race. It looked like it wasn't going to be his day, but he is going to come across the line, and he's going to win the sprint race here, Sikorsky, with a bit of very cheeky tactics to secure himself another race victory here in the Indy Euro Series. And Thomas Wright coming across the line in second position, and Ben Ford, who had to do that splash, comes across in third, ahead of Luke Smith in fourth, and Timo van Haften will come across in fifth for his best position, I believe, in IES overall, with Harry Ward in sixth and Merlin Rubers with another solid performance for the Cuda Motorsport Blue entry in seventh, with Aman Lal and Chloe Lord recovering to ninth, and Micah Mixer showing exactly how you recover from a less impressive first race, comes across in 10th position, with Alexander Strobel picking up a black flag on the last lap, so that's going to impact him quite significantly as well. But man, what a race we had here for the sprint race here in IES round 2. But it is another victory again for the very much, I would say, dark horse here. I think Strobel's actually served his penalty in the pits, so he might actually get away with this one. Done a bit of a cheeky Michael Schumacher from Silverstone all those years back. So I wonder if he's got away with it as he goes straight into the back of Solovey. So then, with that said, the unofficial results of round 2 of IES in the sprint race is as follows. Fredrik Sikorsky takes his second victory of the season, with Thomas Wright coming home in P2. Yet again, he will be sure to try and make it a win next time out, with Ben Ford on debut scoring a very, very solid P3. Would have probably won the race if he didn't have to make that pit stop, with Luke Smith recovering to P4. Obviously a P2 and P4 for him. Some very solid points, with Timo van Haften now in 5th position and Harry Ward in 6th. Merlin Ruvers in 7th, with Aman Lal in 8th. Chloe Lord, as I said earlier, recovered to 9th, and Micah Mixer with a very impressive P10. David Payne is going to come home in 11th position, exactly where he started the sprint race, so he will not be too disappointed with that, I don't think. Anthony Heitzmeier is going to come home in 12th position, up 6 positions from where he started, with Kostek Solovey somehow ending up in 13th after feeling like he was involved in a lot of things. Jake Williams, after going round like 5 times on the straight into turn 1, picking up a black flag and all that stuff, is going to come home in 14th, with Indy Kirkenbauer in 15th. Alexander Strobel with his black flag, I do think he did not serve it. He's going to come home in 16th, with Jaeden Koprivnik, the last driver on the lead lap, in 17th. Gilagi Tibor from reverse grid pole is going to come home in 18th. He'll be certain to get he'll want to do way better next time, I think. With Ben Sieber in 19th. Cape Outsman will have to settle for 20th, with Wojciech Dvorak in 21st. Pim van Gastel in 22nd. Marcel Vogt in 23rd. Filip Kovala down in P24, with Marvin Bernardin, I think, as we saw, got collected earlier on in the race, with Mike Krzyznik in 26th. Teal Verdi in 27th, and Isaac Fairweather and Ewan Langley will round out the grid for this evening. So, as we did last time out, we're going to be dragging in our race winner in the sprint race. Franek Sikorsky, what a race. And I mean, how on earth did you manage to win this one?
I think the sprint was just a pure comedy, to be honest. I think no one actually deserved to win it, from especially P2, maybe P3 included, because of the pit stop they did. Yeah, it was very, very weird, I have to say. I have no idea how it happened, actually. The only thing I really remember from this race, apart from the all spins I've had, I think 2 or 3 maybe, was turn 1. Apart from that, it was really just fighting with oversteer and lack of the grip on the rear axle. But I quite enjoyed these conditions. I think I had a little upper hand over everybody, that I was increasing the gap to people behind. Quite surprised also, because I never drove on in rain on Mugello and with the IndyCar. So yeah, that definitely was surprising, but after a very poor feature race, I'll definitely take the sprint win.
Yeah, I mean, a win is a win, and it's still going to be very good points for your championship fight. I was going to say though, you did. Did I catch it right? Did you slow down on the main straight to make it go a lap less? I must know.
I went a little off in the final corner. I went into gravel, but I think with driving off, it actually helped me, because the timer went just below the mark for the final lap.
Okay, so it was exactly as we as we saw there, and we saw, after your spin, obviously Ben Ford took over the race lead. He had to make a pit stop. How close was it between you also having to go into the pits?
When I crossed the finish line, I was at 0.3 liters of fuel on the final lap. Yeah,
Okay.
so it was very close to not making the finish line.
Okay, so that tactical excursion at turn or at the final corner certainly helped you a lot in that sense. So, but I mean,
Sorry,
go ahead.
that's it wasn't really a tactical thing. I was actually also preparing a pit stop, and with lack of any view at what's going at the track, I just went into the gravel. So it wasn't really planned. But at the end, it actually helped me, because right when I rejoined the track, the iRacing showed that it's a white flag, and that's gonna be the final lap, and I don't even have to make the pit stop.
Yeah, no, I was joking a little bit with that and being sarcastic. But with that said, I mean, that concludes our first 2 races of IES. There'll be a break week next time out, next week, and then after that we'll be heading to Charlotte in I believe it's North Carolina for the Charlotte 180. It's also our first oval race of the championship. We've seen your pace on normal road courses. What are your thoughts heading into the first oval of the season?
The thoughts are that I have absolutely no idea how I'll do on ovals. I never did not only any oval race on IndyCar, but an oval overall. So it's definitely gonna be challenging, and I'll definitely need to put some time into practicing and also driving in the very bunched up field of ovals. So that's gonna be definitely challenging for me, but I'll definitely try my best to prepare myself for everything that can happen.
Well, that's great to hear, and we wish you got an extra week to prepare yourself for that as well. Big congratulations, though, Franek, and we will probably be speaking with each other a little bit more in the championship if things continue in the same way that they're doing at the moment. So enjoy that win, and we'll see you back on track, hopefully then, in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I hope also to see more often as well.
Awesome. Love to see it. Take care, and we'll see you another time. So with that said, that concludes, obviously, a very, very hectic second round of IES with a rain-affected sprint race here at Mugello. Certainly did spice things up significantly, and it has put a blow in certain drivers as championship bids, but at the same time, it is the way that racing goes. You have to be prepared for anything and everything if you want to be champion. That applies for most forms of motorsport, as Franek has to prepare himself for his first oval race. So will we see, the more oval-oriented drivers make the most advantage of that? Well, find out in 2 weeks' time. It's been a pleasure anyway being your sort of commentator this evening, and I want to say a big thank you as well to our wonderful producer Julien Altena for providing us with the best possible camera work throughout the evening, even though the technology didn't want to be on our side this time, but that's how things go sometimes. Anyway, with that said, I've been Philip Ansell, this has been IES, and we hope to see you guys in 2 weeks' time for the Charlotte 180. And until then, take care.